The night bled silence across the city of Baltimore. Not the comforting quiet of suburban streets or the hush of snowfall, but the kind of silence that seemed to listen back, as though the dark itself were waiting for someone to make a mistake. The Camden terminal was supposed to be closed after midnight. The Great Hall, with its iron beams and grimy glass ceiling, usually slept at that hour, but tonight, its lights still burned. A single young woman sat on the wooden bench near Platform 9. Claire Matthews, 26, marketing assistant at a firm that drained her daylight, and her joy. Her long commute had always been a dull necessity. But tonight felt different. The air in the station was heavy, humid despite the winter chill outside. The broken vending machine near her bench hummed irregularly, its buzzing forming a strange rhythm, almost like chanting. Claire tapped her phone, checking the time. 12:37 a.m. The last train should have arrived 10 minutes ago, but the rails lay dead silent. She was alone, or so she thought. A faint shuffle echoed from the far end of the platform. Footsteps, slow, deliberate, dragging something across the ground. Claire's heart thudded, once hard, against her ribs. She turned. Out of the fog that seemed to have leaked into the terminal through unseen cracks, a figure approached, tall, bent-backed, draped in a coat that looked soaked through with rain or something. Darker. His face was hidden beneath the brim of a hat, but his hand swung at his side carrying a rusted lantern. Its light, a dim, sputtering orange. He stopped 20 feet away. The lantern light swayed, throwing shadows across the tiled floor, and then Claire saw it. The shadows weren't matching. The man's silhouette stood still, but the shadows round him long, crooked, dozens of them twitched, fingers clawed the floor, mouths opened and closed without sound. Claire froze. The man tilted his head toward her, though she couldn't see his eyes. His lips parted. What came out wasn't words. It was a low, guttural whisper, like something crawling up from beneath the earth. And then Claire's phone rang. The screen lit up with an unknown number, hands trembling. She answered. Hello. Static. Then a voice, hoarse and cracked, like vocal cords, long rotted. Do not board the train. It's not for the living. Her stomach dropped. She jerked her head toward the tracks and there it was. The rails trembled violently. A howl of metal filled the air, and a train long, black, silent glided into the station. Its windows were opaque, like mirrors. Its headlights cut through the fog like eyes, searching for prey. The doors slid open. No sound. No conductor. No announcement. Inside, rows of passengers sat motionless, their skin pale, their eyes closed. Each wrist bore a crimson thread, each head tilted slightly, like marionettes waiting for a puppeteer's touch. Claire's breath hitched, her pulse thundered, every nerve in her body screamed to run, and then she saw her in the first row, by the window, a woman, her hair, her face, her clothes identical. Claire staring at Claire, but this other Claire's eyes were open, wide, fixed directly on her, and she smiled. The lantern sputtered and went out. Darkness swallowed the terminal. The last sound Claire heard was the doors sliding shut, when the emergency lights flickered back to life. The platform was empty. Her phone lay on the bench where she'd been sitting, its screen cracked, still glowing. One notification pulsed across it, as if carved from the inside. Passenger boarded. The morning came without warning. Cold sunlight filtered, weakly, through the blinds of apartment for B. On Franklin Street. The coffee pot sat cold on the counter. The alarm clock screamed 7 a.m., but Claire Matthews was nowhere to be found. Her roommate, Jessica Hale, groggy and hungover from another late shift at the diner, stumbled from her bedroom. She glanced at the empty couch, at Claire's neatly folded jacket still hanging by the door. Claire, she called. Silence. It wasn't unusual for Claire to stay at a friend's or crash at her boyfriend's, except Jessica remembered. Claire didn't have a boyfriend anymore. The breakup had been messy, bitter. and recent Claire had promised she'd be home last night after the train. Jessica frowned, dialed Claire's number. It rang once, then cut off, straight to voicemail. By noon, Jessica was pacing the living room, phone in hand, fingers trembling. She called the police. Detective Ethan. Cole hated missing persons calls. Most turned out to be drunk college kids or domestic disputes. But something about Jessica's voice on the phone had unsettled him. She never came home. Jessica repeated for the third time, twisting the hem of her hoodie. She texted me from Camden Terminal at midnight. That's the last I heard. Ethan scribbled notes. His partner, Detective Ramirez, leaned against the doorframe, sipping burnt station coffee. You said she texted? Cole asked. Jessica shoved her phone forward. The message was simple. Train's late. Weird crowd tonight. Be home soon. Sent at 12:36 a.m., Cole's pen hovered. Weird crowd. Jessica nodded. That's what she wrote. But when I asked what she meant, she didn't reply. Just nothing. Cole sighed, pocketing the phone for evidence. We'll pull the station cameras. Camden Terminal smelled of rust and mildew when Cole and Ramirez arrived that afternoon. The platform was quiet, sunlight pouring in through the cracked glass ceiling. The place looked ordinary, just another decaying train station. But when Cole stepped onto platform 9, he stopped cold. There, on the wooden bench, lay a phone, cracked screen, dead battery. Claire's phone. Ramirez crouched. Hell of a coincidence. Cole flipped through his notes. The roommate had already shown them Claire's phone log. This was the same device. Yet here it was, abandoned. Cole's stomach tightened. It wasn't what he found that bothered him. It was what he didn't find. No signs of struggle. No dropped bag. No footprints in the dust. It was as if she had simply dissolved into the air. That night, Jessica couldn't sleep. She sat in Claire's room, staring at the unmade bed, the paperback novel left open on the nightstand. She tried to convince herself her friend had run away, taken off without telling anyone. But then her phone, VIBRATED, new message no, contact name, just a number she didn't recognize. Her blood turned to ice. When she read the words, "Don't wait up for her," she already boarded. Jessica dropped the phone. The screen stayed lit, showing something else beneath the message, an image file. With trembling hands, she opened it. The photo was grainy, black and white, but she recognized the location instantly. Platform 9 at Camden Terminal, and, in the picture, sitting on the wooden bench, was Claire. Only, her eyes were wide open, staring blankly into the distance. Her wrists were bound by red threads, and behind her, barely visible in the fog, loomed the outline of a train. Detective Cole's phone rang at 3 a.m. He groaned, rolled over in bed, and answered. Cole. Static crackled on the line. Then a voice faint and distant. She boarded. Another one will too. Watch the shadows. The line went dead. Cole sat up, drenched in sweat, and for a fleeting moment, he swore he heard it, the faint shriek of train brakes outside his window, though the nearest tracks were miles away. The following day, the police pulled security footage from Camden Terminal. Jessica was present during the review, arms folded tightly, refusing to let go of hope. Cole clicked through the frames. 11:58 p.m. platform empty. 12:10 a.m. Claire walks into frame. Sits on the bench, checks her phone. 12:30 a.m. fog begins to appear inside the station, though the doors remain closed. 12:36 a.m. Claire lifts her head, staring at something just outside the frame. 12:37 a.m. the screen. glitched.static tore across the footage. When it cleared, the bench was empty. Claire was gone. Ramirez cursed under his breath. Cole froze, leaning closer to the monitor. For a fraction of a second, barely visible in the static, a shape moved past the camera. Not Claire, not a person, something tall, thin, carrying a lantern. That evening, Jessica sat alone in her apartment, clutching Claire's favorite scarf to her chest. The city outside buzzed with normal life sirens, cars, laughter spilling from bars. But inside, the silence was unbearable. She tried to distract herself with the TV. Late-night news played footage of a car accident on I-95. The reporter spoke of the victims, their names scrolling across the screen. And then Jessica froze. One of the names, a young man she didn't know, flashed with a photo, and on his wrist, clearly visible in the picture, was a crimson thread. Her stomach dropped. Jessica fumbled for her phone, dialing Detective Cole. But before the line could connect, the TV cut to static, and from within that static, a whisper leaked through the speakers. Passengers are boarding. More seats to fill. Jessica hadn't left the apartment in 2 days. She barely ate, barely slept. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Claire sitting on that bench, pale, wrists bound by crimson. The apartment was beginning to feel wrong. Too cold, though the heater rattled endlessly. Too quiet, though she swore she could hear footsteps pacing in the hall outside her door, even at 3 in the morning. On the third night, she woke to something tightening around her wrist. Her heart hammered as she bolted upright in bed. She looked down a thread, a single length of red thread, wound tightly around her skin, cutting off circulation. Jessica screamed, clawing at it with shaking fingers, but when she pulled, the thread seemed endless. It unraveled and unraveled, falling to the floor in coils. Yet the knot around her wrist never loosened. Her lamp flickered. The shadows in the room stretched across the walls, too tall, too thin, and then the whisper. From the corner of the room, where no one stood, a voice slithered. Passenger confirmed. The lamp exploded. Darkness swallowed everything. Detective Cole leaned back in his chair, staring at the piles of reports scattered across his desk. Runaway cases, suicides on the tracks, disappearing commuters. They stretched back decades. Always from Camden Terminal. Always in the dead hours after midnight. Cole rubbed his temples. What the hell are we missing? His partner Ramirez shrugged, flipping through one of the older reports. This station's a graveyard. Man, they should've torn it down years ago. Cole shook his head. Not a graveyard, a hunting ground. Ramirez raised an eyebrow. Cole slid a black and white photo across the desk. It was from 1978, grainy, washed out, but the image was clear enough. A train, on platform 9. Its windows black, its headlights like eyes, and standing in the fog before it, a figure, with a lantern. Cole leaned forward, voice low. They've been seeing this thing for decades, and every time someone goes missing. Jessica sat across from them in the precinct, her hands trembling as she clutched her coffee cup. Her wrist, hidden beneath her sleeve, still burned from the phantom thread. I don't care if you think I'm crazy, she snapped, eyes rimmed red. Something took Claire, and it's coming for me next. Cole studied her for a long moment. Tell me about the thread. Jessica froze. How do you? Cole pulled out another file. This one from 1992, a college student's testimony. He had claimed a red thread appeared around his arm the night before his disappearance. The body was never found. Jessica's stomach turned. Ramirez muttered, "Guess that makes 2 of you seeing things." Jessica leaned across the table, desperate. "I'm not seeing things. I woke up with it on me. You don't understand, it was real." And the voice, Cole cut her off. "What voice?" Her lips trembled. Passenger confirmed. The air in the room seemed to grow colder. Even Ramirez, skeptic to the core, fell silent. That night, Cole drove back to Camden Terminal alone. The place loomed in the fog, its iron beams groaning as though alive. He stood on platform 9, flashlights sweeping across the emptiness. The bench where Claire had last been seen looked innocent now, ordinary, and then he saw it. Something glinting on the ground, tucked between the wooden slats. He crouched. It was a thread, thin red dot. He pulled on it gently at first, then harder. It didn't snap. It didn't end. The thread stretched out across the platform, vanishing into the darkness beyond the tracks. And from that darkness came the distant, echoing shriek of brakes. Cole's flashlight flickered. The rails began to tremble. And then, just for a heartbeat, he saw headlights cutting through the fog. A black mass gliding silently forward the train. Cole staggered back, but when he blinked, it was gone. Only the thread remained, swaying lightly in the dead air, as if something on the other end had just let go. Back at her apartment, Jessica sat curled on the couch, every light on, TV blasting to drown out the silence. But it didn't help. Because even over the noise, she could hear it. The faint rattle of wheels on rails, the low hum of a train engine. She pressed her palms over her ears, sobbing, and then her phone buzzed. New message, from Claire's number. Jessica's heart lurched. Hands shaking. She opened it. The text was simple. Next departure, 3:15 a.m., don't be late. The clock on the wall read 3:07. The apartment clock ticked like a countdown. 3:10 a.m., JESSICAS. Phone lay on the coffee table. The message from Claire's number burning on the cracked screen. Next departure, 3:15 a.m., don't be late. Her throat was dry, her palms slick with sweat. She tried to tell herself it was a sick prank, a hacker, a scam, but deep down, she knew. She felt it. Something was waiting for her, and the thread around her wristed, pulsed, as if it had a heartbeat of its own, tugging, insistent. Jessica backed against the wall, clutching a kitchen knife in trembling hands. No, she whispered to herself. I'm not going. I'm not. But the pull grew stronger. Her body moved without her. Her feet scraped against the hardwood floor as the thread tightened, dragging her toward the door. Her phone buzzed again. Another message. Final. Boarding. 3:15. Detective Cole sat in his car outside Camden Terminal, rain streaking across the windshield. His eyes were bloodshot, his nerves frayed. Something was wrong tonight. The city felt muted, hushed, like a theater holding its breath before the curtain rose. Cole checked his watch. 3:12 a.m. He lit a cigarette, hands shaking. He hated smoking, had quit 5 years ago, but the craving came back every time he felt fear, and tonight, he was drowning in it. The station loomed before him, its cracked windows glowing faintly, though the building had no power after midnight. Cole exhaled smoke, muttering under his breath. All right, you bastard. Show yourself. Jessica's front door slammed open without her touching it. The hallway stretched long and empty, lights flickering one by one, leading her forward like runway beacons. Her body fought, muscles straining against the invisible pull. Tears streamed down her face. Please, no. The knife slipped from her fingers, clattering uselessly to the floor. The thread yanked hard. Jessica stumbled into the hall, bare feet slapping against cold tile. Every step echoed like a hammer strike. Down the stairs, out the lobby, into the fog-shrouded street. No cars, no people, only silence. In the distance, the faint sound of rails trembling. The train was coming. Cole pushed through the terminal doors. The great hall was empty, the silence suffocating. His flashlight beam cut across the floor, catching dust motes, swirling like ash. Platform 9 stretched before him, and then he heard it, the low hum of a train engine, but not mechanical. Alive, breathing. Cole, single quotes, his hand tightened around the grip of his pistol. Come on, he whispered. Where are you? Jessica reached the terminal steps at exactly 3:14 a.m. Her chest burned. Her legs shook, but she couldn't stop. The thread dragged her forward, cutting deeper into her skin, blood seeping beneath it. The doors opened on their own. Inside. Fog pooled across the tiles like liquid. Shadows stretched along the walls, twitching unnaturally, as though reaching for her. And then she saw the lantern. Far down the platform, swaying, glowing orange, in the hand of a tall figure, the conductor. Jessica's scream tore through the station. Cole spun at the sound. His flashlight caught her. Jessica stumbling into the terminal, bound by something he couldn't see. "Jessica," he shouted, running toward her. But before he could reach her, the ground shook violently. The rails screamed, and out of the fog, it emerged, the train black steel, windows like mirrors, headlights blazing like eyes of a predator. It slid into the station without a sound, its doors opening wide. Inside, the rows of passengers sat motionless, pale, wrists tied by crimson thread. Cole raised his pistol, aiming at the figure with the lantern. "Stop right there." The conductor tilted its head, lantern swaying. Its face was hidden by shadow, but its voice seeped out like oil. "Passenger confirmed." The thread yanked Jessica violently forward. She stumbled, screaming. Dragged toward the open door, Cole fired. The gunshot echoed through the terminal, glass shattering somewhere above. The bullet tore through the fog and vanished as though the air itself had devoured it. The conductor didn't flinch. Jessica's feet hit the platform. She was seconds from being pulled inside. Cole sprinted, tackling her just before she crossed the threshold. The thread snapped, not cut, but severed by something unseen. Jessica collapsed in his arms, sobbing. The train's door slammed shut. Cole looked up through the black glass of the nearest window. He saw her, Claire, staring at him, her lips moving silently, forming 3 words. "Don't stop them." And then the train was gone, vanishing into the fog, leaving nothing but silence and the lingering stench of smoke and iron. Jessica lay shaking against Cole's chest. Her wrist was raw and bleeding where the thread had cut. Cole held her tighter, eyes fixed on the empty rails. "Jesus Christ," Ramirez muttered, appearing breathless behind them. Having just caught up, he froze when he saw the blood, the fog, the silence. Cole stood slowly, his face pale. "They're not just taking passengers," he said. "They're building something." Jessica looked up at him, her voice hoarse, trembling. "Then stop them, please, before it's too late." Cole didn't answer, because deep down, he wasn't sure it could be stopped. Detective Cole hadn't slept in 30 hours. The image of Claire, behind that glass, her lips forming those 3 words, wouldn't leave his mind. "Don't stop them," the words echoed, festering. Who was them? The conductor, the passengers, something else. He sat in the precinct briefing room, stacks of old files spread across the table. Every disappearance tied to Camden Terminal, every witness statement, every half-legible police report that had been written off as delusion. Jessica sat across from him, pale and jittery, her wrist wrapped in gauze. Her coffee sat untouched. She finally broke the silence. "Claire's alive. She has to be. I saw her." "You saw her?" Cole rubbed his tired eyes. "Alive might not be the word I'd use." Jessica slammed her palms on the table. "Then what? What do you think they're doing to them?" Cole didn't answer right away. Instead, he slid a photo across the table. A crime scene shot from 1985. The victim, a man found collapsed on the tracks. No sign of a struggle. No wounds except for deep, bloody grooves carved into his wrists. Red thread still clung to his skin. Jessica covered her mouth. "Oh my God." Cole's jaw tightened. "This is the only body we ever found. The rest, gone, like they never existed." They weren't alone. Ramirez leaned against the wall, arms crossed, staring at the files. Normally, he'd be mocking Cole for chasing ghost stories. But after what he saw at the station, he had nothing sarcastic left in him. "You're saying this train's been running for decades," Ramirez muttered, "picking up people. But for what? It's not like they're selling tickets." Cole didn't look up. "Not a train. Not really. It's something using a train, like a mask." Jessica's voice cracked. "Then what happens when it's full?" Silence. No one had an answer. That night, Cole returned to Camden Terminal with Jessica at his side. Ramirez stayed behind, compiling missing persons data grudgingly, but he couldn't deny the pattern anymore. The station was darker than before, colder. The air stank of oil and ash. Cole swept his flashlight across the platforms. His beam landed on something scratched into the iron wall by the tracks. A word, dozens of times, carved deep by desperate hands. PSSC and GR. Jessica shuddered. They left that to warn us. Cole knelt, running his fingers across the grooves. They were fresh, not from decades ago. The rails began to tremble. Jessica froze. No, not again. Please. Cole grabbed her hand. We're not here to ride. We're here to watch. The fog thickened. The air grew heavy, and then the train slid into the station. This time, it didn't stop at the platform. It passed by in total silence, its black windows gliding endlessly. Jessica counted. 1 car, 2, 5, 10. Each car filled with passengers, faces pressed against the glass, eyes wide, mouths moving silently. Dozens, hundreds, every missing person. Cole felt his stomach twist. This isn't a train, it's a prison. Jessica's breath fogged in the air. Look, the windows. Cole raised his light. Inside, the passengers weren't just sitting. They were bound, threads wrapped around their limbs, torsos, even necks. Thousands of red strands woven together like a web, connecting every person to the walls of the train itself. The passengers were becoming part of it. Jessica gagged. It's using them, feeding on them. The conductor walked the aisle, lantern swinging. With each sway, more threads tightened. The passengers' bodies jerked in unison, like puppets pulled on strings. Cole whispered, "They're not being taken, they're being woven." The train roared past, the fog swallowing it whole. Jessica collapsed against the wall, sobbing. "Claire's in there. I saw her. She's in there with them." Cole clenched his fists. Then he saw it on the ground, where the train had just passed. A scrap of paper. He picked it up with shaking hands. It was torn, yellowed, edges burned. Scrawled across it in desperate handwriting were the words, "Car 13, stop the weaving." Later, back at the precinct, Ramirez dumped a folder onto the table. "Pulled every missing persons report from this side of the state," he said. "Guess how many line up with Camden Terminal departures?" Jessica didn't answer. Cole did. "All of them?" Ramirez nodded grimly. "Every last one. And here's the kicker. Every 13 years, the numbers spike. Big time." Jessica's eyes widened. 13. Like the car number. Cole stared at the note. His gut twisted. Car 13 isn't just another car. It's the heart of this thing. Ramirez looked at him. "Then how the hell do we get inside?" Cole didn't respond. His mind raced. Because somewhere out there, in the endless dark, Claire and hundreds of others were being bound tighter every second. And if they didn't find car 13 soon, there'd be no one left to save. The rain fell like needles against the cracked windows of Cole's apartment. Files, maps, photographs were spread across every surface. String-tied pins on a corkboard, a crude web of timelines and connections. Jessica sat on the couch, her hands shaking as she cradled a mug of untouched tea. Her skin was pale, lips colorless. The bandages around her wrist were stained through with fresh blood. Cole paced like a caged animal. "Car 13, he muttered for the 100th time. "Whoever left that note, they knew what it was. They wanted us to find it." Jessica's voice trembled. "What if it's not a warning? What if it's bait?" Cole stopped pacing. His eyes, bloodshot and hollow, locked onto hers. "Either way, Claire's in there. And if we wait too long," he didn't finish. He didn't need to. Jessica lowered her gaze. She knew what he meant. She could still see Claire's face in that window, the way her lips moved silently, pleading, warning. Ramirez barged in, soaked from the rain, dropping a heavy duffel bag onto the floor. "Don't Ask where I got this, he said, unzipping it. Inside, bolt cutters, crowbars, flashlights, extra magazines, rope, and a pair of old gas masks. Jessica's stomach turned. What? What do you think we're fighting? Ramirez shrugged stiffly. Not a goddamn clue, but if it bleeds, it dies. Cole didn't smile. He knew better. This wasn't going to be a fight. It was going to be survival. 3 a.m. The trio stood outside Camden Terminal. The city around them was dead quiet, suffocated by fog that pressed against their skin like damp cloth. Jessica clutched her jacket tight, her teeth chattering, not from cold, but from the pull. The thread around her wrist had grown darker, thicker, twitching against her skin like a living vein. It knows I'm here, she whispered. It wants me back. Cole touched her shoulder. You stay behind me, no matter what happens. Ramirez cocked his pistol, jaw clenched. Let's ride this nightmare. They entered the terminal. The silence was crushing. No wind, no rats, no sound of dripping pipes, just emptiness. And then the faint hum, low, mechanical, yet alive. The rails began to tremble. The train slid into view, black as pitch, its windows glowing faintly from within. This time, the doors opened. An invitation. Jessica gasped. The pull on her wrist was unbearable now, yanking her toward the platform like a hooked fish. Cole gripped her tightly, forcing her back. You're not going without us. He turned to Ramirez, who nodded grimly. The three of them stepped onto the platform. Every instinct screamed at them to turn back, but the doors were open, and car 13 was waiting inside. The air was wrong, thick, rotting. The walls of the first car were lined with red thread, glistening like wet sinew. Passengers sat slumped in their seats, heads tilted, eyes glassy. Their chests rose and fell, shallowly, in perfect unison. Jessica covered her mouth. Oh God. One of the passengers twitched as they passed. His eyes rolled toward Jessica. His lips moved, no sound. Just shapes. Cole leaned closer, reading them. Run. A shiver bolted down his spine. They moved forward cautiously, stepping over threads stretched across the aisle like The deeper they went, the tighter the webbing became. Cole counted the cars. 1, 2, 5, 10. Every car, the same rows of hollow passengers, bound tighter and tighter, their bodies jerking with the rhythm of the rails. Jessica was crying silently, now, her breath fogging the gas mask she wore. Claire's here. I can feel her, Ramirez grunted. Then she's in car 13, and we're almost there. At last, they reached it. The door loomed before them. Car 13. Unlike the others, its steel was darker, almost organic, pulsing faintly, as if it had veins beneath the surface. A crimson glow leaked from the seams of the door. Cole raised his weapon. His voice was steady, but his hands were trembling. This is it. Jessica pressed her palm against the metal. The thread in her wrist writhed violently, knotting itself against the door like it was trying to burrow inside. It wants me in there, she whispered. Ramirez raised the bolt cutters. Then let's see what it's hiding. He clamped down on the thick chain, locking the door. The steel shrieked. 1 cut, 2, 3. The chain snapped. The door slid open. The stench hit them first, like burning hair, rotting meat, and something sweet underneath, cloying, suffocating. The inside of car 13 was wrong. It wasn't a passenger car at all. It was a chamber. The walls pulsed with threads, stretching from floor to ceiling, converging into a massive woven mass at the center. Like a cocoon, dozens of faces pressed against the surface of the threads. From inside, mouths opening and closing silently, eyes bulging in terror. Jessica screamed. Her sister's face was among them. Claire. Cole grabbed Jessica before she could rush forward. No, it's not her anymore. The cocoon shifted. Threads snapped outward, wrapping around the poles and seats, jerking tight like muscles contracting. The train shook violently. and then a figure unfolded from the cocoon itself. The conductor, its lantern glowed, brighter than ever, its head twisted unnaturally, face still hidden in shadow, but its voice filled the car, dripping with static and venom. Unauthorized boarding detected. The door slammed shut behind them. Cole raised his gun. Ramirez followed. Jessica clutched the knife she'd sworn never to use. They were trapped inside car 13, with the conductor, and the weaving had only just begun. The doors sealed with a metallic shriek that echoed through the chamber like the scream of a dying animal. Cole spun toward them, shoving his shoulder against the exit. Nothing, sealed tight. The conductor's lantern flared, casting blood-red light across the cocoon. Threads rippled outward, tightening, pulling the bound passengers deeper into its pulsating mass. Jessica clawed at Cole's arm. "Claire's in there. We can cut her out." The conductor moved closer, lantern swinging like a pendulum. With each sway, threads snapped from the walls and lashed outward, striking the floor, the ceiling, the seats. Ramirez fired his pistol. 3 shots cracked through the air. The conductor staggered, threads twitching, but no blood, no wound. The bullets vanished into the fabric of its body, absorbed like drops of rain into soil. Its head tilted toward Ramirez. The lantern flared brighter. Every passenger in the cocoon opened their mouths at once. A chorus of shrieks erupted, so loud the walls of the train vibrated. Ramirez dropped to his knees, hands clamped over his ears. "Make it stop. Jesus Christ. Make it stop," Jessica screamed, lunging forward. She hacked at the threads with her knife, slicing through one, 2 thick cords, snapping like tendons. For a moment, a face pushed through. Claire's, her mouth opened wide, but no words came out, only threads. They spilled from her lips in a torrent, wrapping around Jessica's arms, her waist, her throat. Cole ripped her back, slashing with his own knife. The threads hissed as they split, twitching like worms in the air. Jessica gasped, blood streaking her neck. "She's gone. Oh God, she's gone." The conductor's voice filled the car, metallic and resonant. "Every passenger serves. Every thread strengthens the weave. The pattern will be complete." Cole's eyes darted around the chamber. The walls weren't just pulsing, they were moving. Every time the conductor spoke, the threads shifted into new patterns, like the interior of the car was being rewritten. Shapes formed in the cocoon, symbols that burned themselves into his mind circles, jagged spirals, shapes that didn't belong in human geometry. He realized with sick certainty, this wasn't just a prison, it was a loom. Ramirez forced himself up, fury burning through the fear. "You want passengers," he roared. He ripped a flare from his belt and struck it, the red fire hissing to life. The conductor recoiled, lantern dimming. For the first time, it looked vulnerable. "Burn it," Cole shouted. "The threads hate the fire." Ramirez hurled the flare at the cocoon. The effect was instant. The faces inside contorted, eyes bulging, mouths tearing open in silent agony. The threads sizzled and blackened, smoke curling into the air. The cocoon shrieked. Not the passengers, the cocoon itself. The conductor roared, its voice no longer metallic, but guttural, primal. Like an animal caught in a trap, it lashed out, threads whipping wildly. One slammed into Ramirez, sending him flying across the car. He struck the wall hard, his body folding unnaturally. Blood poured from his mouth as he slid to the floor. "Ramirez," Jessica screamed. He coughed, teeth red. "Don't stop, keep burning it." Cole ripped another flare from Ramirez's belt and lit it. He drove it into the wall of the car. The metal hissed and screamed, as if alive. Jessica, sobbing, struck match after match, tossing them into the cocoon. Fire spread across the threads, blackening them, filling the air with the stench of burnt flesh and hair. The cocoon thrashed, faces stretching and distorting, some screaming in silence, others tearing apart into strands of ashdot through the chaos. Claire's face appeared again. For a heartbeat, she looked alive, whole. "Jess," she whispered. Jessica dropped her knife. Claire. Claire's eyes widened, shimmering with tears. Help me. Jessica reached forward, ignoring Cole's shouts. She grabbed Claire's hands, warm, trembling, real. For one blissful moment, she believed. Then Claire's skin split open, red threads bursting from her flesh, wrapping around Jessica's arms and dragging her toward the cocoon. Jessica screamed. Cole lunged, slicing the threads, yanking her back with all his strength. She collapsed into his arms, sobbing, her body streaked with blood and ash. The conductor shrieked again, lantern dimming to a faint ember. The cocoon writhed violently, collapsing inward. The fire was working, but Cole saw the truth in that moment. They weren't killing it, they were only slowing it down. The conductor's voice rattled the car, broken and furious. The weaving cannot be stopped. The pattern will be completed. Camden is only the first station. Cole froze. First station. There were others. Before he could react, the car jolted violently. The train screeched, hurling them against the walls. The lantern flared again, blinding, and then darkness. When Cole opened his eyes, he was lying on the platform at Camden Terminal. The train was gone. Jessica was next to him, unconscious but breathing. Ramirez lay a few feet away. UNMOVING. Cole crawled to him, pressing 2 fingers to his neck. A pulse, weak, but alive. He looked around wildly. The station was empty. Silent. Only one thing remained. On the ground beside him lay the conductor's lantern, still burning. The rain hadn't stopped. It hammered the roof of the old motel where Cole dragged Jessica and Ramirez after the nightmare. At Camden Terminal. Jessica sat on the bed, staring at her bandaged arms. The red marks from the threads still writhed faintly under her skin, like worms moving just beneath the surface. Ramirez lay unconscious in the next bed, his breathing shallow, chest rising with painful effort. His ribs had cracked in the collision, and blood still stained his lips. Cole sat at the desk. The lantern glowed in front of him. It pulsed with a dim, unnatural rhythm like a heartbeat. Every time he tried to look away, his eyes were drawn back. It wasn't just light, it was alive. Jessica's voice cracked the silence. Why did it leave it behind? Cole didn't answer at first. He traced the lantern's handle with trembling fingers. It was warm, almost hot. Finally, he said, "It didn't leave it. I think it wanted us to take it." Jessica shuddered. "Why?" Cole lifted the lantern. For a moment, the flame inside shifted, burning black, then red, then white. Shadows crawled across the motel walls, forming shapes. Jessica gasped. "Cole, don't." He couldn't stop. The shadows twisted into faces, dozens of them, passengers. Their mouths opened, screaming soundlessly. Their eyes begged, pleaded, and then Claire. Jessica bolted upright. Claire, her sister's face stared out of the shadows, lips moving. This time, sound came, barely a whisper, fragile as glass. "It isn't the end. It's the beginning." The lantern flared, and the faces vanished. Jessica collapsed back onto the bed, shaking uncontrollably. Cole set the lantern down, his hands trembling. "She's alive," he whispered. "Somewhere in there. She's still alive." Jessica buried her face in her hands. "You don't understand. That wasn't Claire. Not anymore." Hours passed. Rain turned to fog. Ramirez woke briefly, coughing, groaning. He grabbed Cole's sleeve with bloodied fingers. "Burn it," he rasped. "Burn that thing before it burns us." Cole said nothing. Jessica whispered, "He's right. That thing isn't a tool, it's a leash. It's how he'll find us again." But Cole wasn't listening. He could feel the pull of the lantern. It wasn't just an object. It was a key. Every instinct told him the conductor had let them leave with it for a reason. That night, while Jessica slept fitfully and Ramirez drifted in and out of pain, Cole sat alone with the lantern. He lit it again. The shadows stretched long across the room. But this time, they didn't form faces. They formed a map. Lines stretched across the walls, curving, intersecting, like railways. Dozens of stations. Hundreds. Thousands. Camden was only one, and at the center of it all, a vast circle. The lanterns. Light trembled when it reached it, as though recoiling from something too enormous to contain. Cole's throat went dry. This wasn't one train, it was a network, and Camden was just the first thread. The shadows shifted again. Cole saw himself standing on a platform, holding the lantern, and behind him Jessica, Ramirez, Claire, and others. Dozens more, their bodies woven into one vast cocoon, a human tapestry. The voice came again, this time from the lantern itself. The weaving requires a conductor. The loom demands hands. You have been chosen. Cole stumbled back, knocking over the chair. The lantern pulsed violently, shadows writhing across the motel walls. Jessica woke with a scream, clutching her head. Cole, put it out. He slammed a towel over it, smothering the light. The room fell silent again, but the words lingered in his ears, burrowing deep. You have been chosen. The next morning, Ramirez was worse. His breathing ragged, fever high. Jessica tried to comfort him, but her eyes were hollow, her voice trembling. She turned to Cole. We can't stay here. He'll come for us. The lantern, it's a beacon. Cole nodded, but his mind was elsewhere. He couldn't stop thinking about the map, the endless rail lines, the vast circle at the center. If this weaving spread across the country, across the world, Claire wasn't the only one trapped. And if the conductor was right, if the weaving needed a successor, Cole wasn't sure if he'd resist, because in the deepest part of his mind, beneath the fear, beneath the grief, was something darker, a whisper. What if it's not a curse? What if it's an opportunity? The motel smelled of mildew and cheap cigarettes. By dawn, Ramirez was barely conscious. Fever burned his skin, and every breath rattled like broken glass. Jessica pressed a wet cloth to his forehead. Her eyes were hollow, her voice gone flat. We can't move him. He won't survive the trip. Cole paced the room, the lantern cradled in his hands. He hadn't slept. His eyes were red, feverish, locked on the glow. We don't have a choice, he muttered. It's not just us anymore. It's bigger. Camden wasn't the end. It was just the first stop. Jessica snapped, her voice sharp, breaking through the dread. And what? We just keep walking into it, following that thing like rats in a maze. She pointed at the lantern, her hands trembling. It's killing you, Cole. You're not even the same anymore. Cole's jaw tightened. You didn't see the map. Jessica grabbed his arm. I don't care about the map. I care about surviving. About Claire. About Ramirez. You're letting it inside you, Cole. He pulled free, his voice low. Maybe that's the only way to stop it. That afternoon, the lantern flared on its own. No match, no spark. The light shot across the motel walls, drawing a single shape, a crooked crossroad with one name burning. At its center, Ashford. Jessica flinched. Where the hell is that? Cole's lips parted, whispering. South. About 30 miles. Jessica stared at him. You can't possibly know that. But he did. He felt it in his bones, as if the rails themselves had whispered it to him. They packed what little they had. Ramirez was strapped into the back seat of a stolen truck, groaning with each bump of the road. Jessica drove. Her knuckles were white around the wheel. Cole sat beside her, lantern on his lap, its glow seeping into his skin. The fog grew thicker the closer they came to Ashford. The road vanished into pale gray. Trees loomed like skeletons in the mist. The radio crackled, even though it was off. A low voice seeped through, distorted, metallic. Tickets, please. All passengers must prepare for departure. Jessica's hands shook on the wheel. Oh God, He's already here. Cole turned the lantern. Its flame was now black, the glass fogged with smoke. He whispered, almost reverent, "No, he's waiting for us." Ashford was a ghost town. The main street was abandoned, storefronts shattered, windows boarded up. Every sign was rusted, every lamppost bent. But in the center of town stood the station, old, crumbling, but alive with a dull, throbbing glow that pulsed like a heartbeat. The lantern flared, answering it. Cole felt something inside him twist, tighten like a hook pulling at his chest. He stepped out of the truck before Jessica could stop him. "Cole," she shouted, grabbing his sleeve. Don't go in there." He turned to her, his face pale, eyes hollowed out. "If we don't, it'll spread. This town's already gone. We're next. The whole country's next." Jessica's lips trembled. "And what happens when you go in? You think he'll just hand you the answers?" Cole glanced at Ramirez in the truck bed, groaning in fever, then back at Jessica. Double quotes, "No. He'll make me take them." The station doors creaked open on their own. Inside, the air reeked of rust and mildew. The walls were lined with faded posters, all showing smiling passengers boarding a train that stretched into a horizon of smoke. But as Jessica looked closer, the passengers' smiles widened too far. Their eyes were hollow pits. Their arms stretched unnaturally long, fingers merging with the rails beneath their feet. Jessica gagged. "This isn't real. Tell me this isn't real." Cole's grip on the lantern tightened. "It's real enough." The main hall stretched longer than it should. Each step echoed, repeating endlessly. The farther they walked, the more the air pressed in. "Thick as wet cloth," Jessica whispered. "It feels like we're walking into its mouth." At the end of the hall stood a single ticket booth. Behind the glass sat the conductor. Its lantern burned. Beside it, brighter than ever, its head tilted slowly, rail spikes glinting in its skull, and then it spoke. "Passenger, Cole Turner." "Ticket accepted." The booth window slid open. The conductor extended a ticket, black inked in blood-red letters. Cole stepped forward, hand trembling. Jessica grabbed him, screaming, "Don't. It's not a way out. It's a noose." But Cole's fingers brushed the paper, and the moment he touched it, the walls around them melted away. The station dissolved. Rails stretched in every direction, endless and burning. Trains thundered across them, carrying cocoons of passengers. Their faces pressed against the glass, screaming silently. Above it all, a vast loom spun in the sky, threads weaving together in impossible patterns. The entire world was being rewoven. Jessica screamed, clutching her head. Ramirez convulsed in the truck, eyes rolling back white dot. Cole stood motionless, lantern in one hand, ticket in the other, and for the first time, he smiled. The rails screamed. Cole stood in the middle of them, lantern in one hand, the black ticket in the other. Around him, trains thundered past hundreds, thousands, each one carrying a prison of flesh and faces pressed against the windows. Jessica staggered beside him, clutching her head, trying to shut out the shrieks that weren't sounds but thoughts burned directly into her mind. Ramirez lay collapsed on the ground, coughing blood, his body jerking as though the rails themselves were running through his veins, and towering above them all the conductor. Its form was larger now, swollen with threads, spikes jutting like horns from its head. Its lantern burned white-hot, casting shadows across a sky that had become a giant. Endless loom. The conductor's voice shook the ground. The weaving phrase. A new hand must guide the shuttle. A successor must be chosen. Its rail spike finger pointed directly at Cole. "You are chosen." Jessica grabbed Cole's arm, yanking him back. "Don't listen to it. That thing doesn't choose you, do." But Cole's eyes glowed faintly with the lantern's flame. His voice was flat, distant. "I've seen the pattern, Jess. It's everywhere. There's no way to stop it. The only choice is to guide it, or be swallowed." Jessica shook her head violently, tears streaking her face. Claire's in there. You saw her. You can still save her, save us. Don't let it turn you into him. Her words wavered, desperate, but Cole's hand was tightening around the black ticket. The conductor leaned closer, its stitched mouth cracked open, revealing a void filled with writhing threads. Take your seat, conductor. The rails are endless. The loom waits for you. Then Ramirez spoke, barely more than a whisper, a gurgle of blood. Don't let it have you. Cole froze. He looked down. Ramirez's eyes were glassy, but fierce. His hand gripped Cole's ankle, weak but determined. You fight it. You fight like hell, or it wins, and the world dies. His body shook violently, then went still. Ramirez was gone. Jessica screamed, grief ripping through her chest. She turned on Cole, striking his chest with both fists. Do something. Don't just stand there, fight it. Cole's hands trembled. The lantern flickered wildly. The ticket shook in his grip. The conductor loomed, voice booming. Choose. Cole raised the lantern. For a moment, he looked almost inhuman, the light carving his face into something sharp, something alien. Jessica backed away, terrified. Cole, please. His voice came low, torn. If I take its place, maybe I can steer it. Maybe I can keep it from spreading. Jessica sobbed. No will become it. That's how it wins. The lantern pulsed, threads whipping through the air around him. They wrapped his arms, his neck, pulling him toward the conductor's colossal form. Cole screamed, forcing them back. The lantern flared white, burning the threads. The conductor recoiled, hissing. You cannot resist the rails. The pattern will not break. Cole's voice roared back, raw and furious. Then I'll burn the pattern. He slammed the lantern to the ground. It shattered, exploding into a storm of white fire. The rails lit up for miles, burning like fuses. The trains shrieked, windows shattering, cocoons unraveling in fire and smoke. The conductor shrieked, its body convulsing as the threads holding it together caught fire. Its lantern cracked, spilling molten light across the ground. The entire loom in the sky writhed, threads snapping, breaking apart. Jessica fell to the ground, covering her head, screaming as the world ripped open around them. Cole stood in the inferno, body lit by white fire, screaming against the sound of unraveling reality. The conductor's voice howled, fading into nothing. There must always be a conductor. Silence. When Jessica opened her eyes, she was lying in the ruins of Ashford Station. The fog was gone. The rails were gone. The sky was just sky. Ramirez's body lay beside her, still, and Cole. Cole stood a few feet away, the shattered remains of the lantern at his feet. He looked at her. His eyes were hollow, rimmed in ash. His hands shook. It's over, he whispered. I broke it. Jessica wanted to believe him, but when she looked closer, her blood froze. Behind his pupils, faint threads moved. Cole turned away, walking into the dawn light. Jessica screamed, after him, her voice breaking. Cole, don't leave me, Cole. He didn't stop. The rails were gone. The conductor was gone, but the whisper lingered in Jessica's ears, carried by the wind. There must always be a conductor, and she knew Turner wasn't coming back.